What's going on, guys? I'm Dark Jack and I'm back from my break from YouTube, and once Grand Theft Auto 5 comes out, I'm going to have lots of videos showing off that game. Now, earlier I uploaded a video on why video game review scores are so inflated, and I argued in that video that review sites are financially dependent upon game publishers to pay for their ad revenue, whereas movie critics are not, and that explains the difference between the high scores of game reviews and the mediocre scores of movie reviews in general on Metacritic. Because game review sites want access to exclusive content, interviews, previews, and reviews. Now in this video, I'm going to give you a concrete example of publisher and reviewer collusion. And I'm going to have links in the description as always when I make a long video like this. What many people do not know about the review site Polygon is that Microsoft gave them $750,000 to make a documentary promoting Polygon's new review site. Now, let me ask you, how much money does it cost to make a 3-minute documentary? Maybe $5,000, $10,000? If a 3-minute video costs $750,000 to make, you are financially incompetent. So obviously, the leftover money goes directly to paying the expenses of the company, and the largest expense Polygon has is the employee of its salaries. And $750,000 could more than pay for the salaries of all the employees at Polygon for at least a year, maybe 2 years. And now the question is, why would Microsoft give $750,000 to a brand new website that hasn't even launched yet? Why the heck would Microsoft give almost $1 million to Polygon if there wasn't something in it for them? What does Microsoft have to gain from the money they have invested in the company? And the answer is, they want a controlling interest or influence in the company, the same way that the largest stockholder does at a major corporation. Microsoft is the largest stockholder in Polygon because OXM, the official Xbox magazine, doesn't review PlayStation games. Microsoft's PR arm does not talk about PlayStation games. That's just what you do not do. The number one rule in PR or public relations is that you never talk about your competition. But Polygon allows Microsoft to hurt Sony game scores on Metacritic and to use their reviews to calm the nerves of those who are tempted to switch from Xbox to PlayStation, to argue that PlayStation exclusives are really not that great. They can say, see, Polygon, the independent game review site, gave The Last of Us a 7.5, or this other game really low score, and I'm going to go into more detail on how it is that Polygon uses their scores to influence Metacritic. Now, Polygon's Code of Ethics says that no employee can receive more than $50 as a gift, because they don't want their gifts to influence the review scores. But it's perfectly okay for the company to receive $750,000 from the largest console maker in America, which can pay the salaries of all its employees. And Polygon has yet to give a PS3 exclusive a higher score than 7.5. Every PS3 exclusive that they reviewed is below the Metacritic average. And I'm not mad that they give PS3 exclusives low scores. But what I am mad about is that they pretend to do so and to be unbiased about it. They pretend to be unbiased and objective, when in reality Microsoft is the one who is paying their bills. So could there be a correlation between the low review scores that Polygon gives to PS3 games and Microsoft bankrolling Polygon and paying for the startup of the company? So let's look at the Metacritic evidence for the review of PlayStation games. Their highest review that they've given a PS3 game, The Last of Us, is a 7.5, whereas the Metacritic average is 9.5. That is a lower score than the indie game Spelunky, which they gave a perfect score, Bioshock Infinite, which got a perfect score, which is surprising considering how similar that game is to The Last of Us. Dance Central 3 got a 9.5, Dead Space 3 got a 9.5, despite its microtransaction controversy. SimCity got a 9.5, despite the horrible server problems. Kid Icarus got a 9, Darksiders 2 got a 9, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance got a 9, Call of Juarez Gunslinger got a 9, NHL 13 got an 8.5, Hitman Absolution got an 8.5, and Zombie U got an 8, as well as Night of the Rabbit, which is a game I've never heard of. It got an 8 as well. And you can't tell me with a straight face that Zombie U is a better game than The Last of Us. You can't tell me that these games that got 8 and 8.5s are better than what I believe is one of the best games ever made. And if you played the game, it's an amazing experience made by Naughty Dog, and Naughty Dog simply does not make bad games. Now, Polygon did give the Little Big Planet on Vita a 9 out of 10, when the average was 8.8. But the Vita is not a direct threat to Microsoft, because they are not in the handheld industry, whereas the PS3 is the closest competition to the 360. Microsoft doesn't care about the Vita because nobody owns the Vita, and it's not competing with them. Then when you look at the God of War Ascension review, it got a 7 out of 10 when the average is an 8, and Puppeteer got a 6 out of 10 when the Metacritic average is 8.2. And Arthur Guise is the one who did those reviews, and he is the former Team Xbox editor for IGN. So of course they get an Xbox fanboy who defended Microsoft's DRM restrictions to review Puppeteer and God of War Ascension. Then Dragon's Crown got a 6.5 when the average is 8.4, and they had a feminist former ACLU employee do the review of that game. And so the conclusion I draw from that is that at the very least they are putting people in charge of reviews who they know will give the game a bad score for controversy to Metacritic bomb and keep Microsoft happy by having an Xbox fanboy do God of War Ascension and Puppeteer, and having a feminist do Dragon's Crown who doesn't like the art style of the game. Of course the game is going to get a bad score when you have those people in charge of the reviews. Then they gave Ni no Kuni a 6.5 out of 10 when the average on Metacritic is 8.5. That's the game I'm playing here. And Ni no Kuni is an incredible game. It has over 50 hours of content. Ni no Kuni is a beautiful game that I've played through at least twice. It has a ridiculous amount of content, and I've done all of the endgame content. And I seriously doubt the person who did the review had done the endgame content when he wrote the review. Because you can't give Studio Ghibli and Level 5 that kind of a review score when the game has so much content to it with a beautiful art style and amazing characters and an amazing story. Also, Polygon gave Starhawk a 6.5 out of 10 when the average is 7.7. They gave Papo.io a 6.5 when the average is 7.2. They gave Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation a 6 out of 10 when the average is 7. They gave Ratchet & Clank Full Frontal Assault a 6 out of 10 when the average is 6.4. They gave Killzone Mercenary a 6 out of 10 when the average is 7.8. And they gave Sly Cooper Thieves in Time a 6 out of 10 when the average is 7.5. And so every PS3 exclusive that Polygon has reviewed is below the Metacritic average, and with the exceptions of Little Big Planet Vita and Resistance Burning Skies, every Vita game is below the Metacritic average. Now let's look at the reviews for Xbox exclusives. For Halo 4, they gave the game a 9.5 out of 10 when the average is 8.7. Then they gave Dance Central 3 a 9.5 when the average is 8.6. They gave State of Decay an 8.5 when the average is 7.8. And they gave Gears of War Judgment an 8 when the average is 7.9. Now there are some exceptions to the rule that they generally favor PlayStation over Xbox. They gave Minecraft 360 Edition a 7 out of 10 when the average is 8.2. They gave Forza a 6 when the average is 8.5. They gave Fable The Journey a 4.5 when the average is 6.1. They gave Kinect Star Wars a 4 when the average is 5.5. And they gave Fable Heroes a 4 when the average is 5.5. Now, with regard to these exceptions, all these games except Forza are bad games to begin with. And what you have to understand is that the only franchise Microsoft cares about is Halo. And if you don't believe me, tell me, which game did Microsoft use to sell the original Xbox? Halo 1, Combat Evolved. What game did Microsoft use to sell the Xbox 360? Halo 3. What game did Microsoft use to sell Windows Vista? It was Halo 2 PC that required the Vista version of Windows. What game does Microsoft use to sell Windows 8? Halo Spartan Assault. Which game will Microsoft use to sell the Xbox One? The answer is Halo 5. Halo 5 will be the system seller for the Xbox One. As long as Halo gets good scores, Microsoft is happy. That's why the Xbox One was designed to appeal to the masses rather than the hardcore gamers, because Microsoft knows that they already have them with Halo. And so the Xbox's fate and Halo's fate are directly tied to each other. They are one and the same. That's why Bungie wanted out of Halo. Now when you look at Polygon's YouTube channel, it has 7 million total views. And based off of what I know about YouTube money, I have over 1 million views on my channel. The most they can make in 1 year is $10,000 at most, if those are all reviews or views where they get money from. And $10,000 is not enough money to pay the salary of any employee. And based on the size of Polygon, I do not believe that they get enough traffic to the website to pay for all their expenses. And that is why Microsoft had to come in and give them $750,000 to get them started. And Polygon also has been banning people who noticed the pattern of poor review scores for PlayStation games. And because of all this evidence, because of being given money by Microsoft and their low review scores for PS3 games, it is difficult to escape the conclusion that Polygon was funded by Microsoft to hurt the Metacritic scores of PS3 games, because Polygon knows who pays the bills. And they could at least be honest about it instead of pretending to be objective game critics. Instead, they come up with subjective reasons for the poor review scores of PS3 games. And I've noticed in review scores, when the review score for a game is out of sync with the majority, often the reviews given are very subjective, rather than being objective reasons. Of course, at some point in the future, they are going to give a PS4 game or a PS3 game as exclusive a good score, but they will just use that review as a false flag to claim that they are not in collusion with Microsoft. But if they were smart, they would have given a PS3 game a good score from the beginning, so that way they could always turn to that review to silence anyone who claims Polygon and Microsoft are working together. Now, while I focused on Polygon in this video, there are many examples of corruption in the game review industry I could point to. You could look at Metacritic using quarter to 3, which is a complete joke of a website that just Metacritic bombs for ad revenue. I have no idea how they're on Metacritic. You could look at EGM's review for Aliens Colonial Marines, where they gave it a 9 out of 10, and I'm sure there was some greasing of the palms there. So game review sites that are involved in Metacritic bombing, or where there is evidence of them working together with a publisher, those sites should not be on Metacritic. The only sites that should be on Metacritic are ones that are objective, not ones that are subjective or engage in these kind of practices. We could also talk about how the judges for the GMAs, or the Game Media Awards, come from game publishers. So game publishers are awarding game journalists for good scores of their games. You can also look up Doritogate, for example. I'll have a link to that in the description. Or we could talk about how GameSpot uses Tom McShay as their Metacritic bomber to bring in ad revenue. Or how GameSpot fired Jeff Gerstmann a while back for giving Kane and Lynch a low score, and so IDOS threatened to pull ad revenue from GameSpot unless they fired him. And I also have a theory that people who review games for a living are secretly miserable because their hobby has become their job, so they no longer take joy in gaming anymore, because for them it is no longer fun, but it's their job. So I hope you guys enjoyed this rant, and I'll see you when GTA 5 drops.